Hi there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hi there, welcome to Being Human, Hidden Depths. I am delighted to welcome Phil Street for another session on the podcast today. Welcome, Phil. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
We'll be back, woohoo! And you join us as we're halfway through the podcast, actually, because we've kind of started without you. I'm really sorry about that. We were just talking about utopia. Phil and I are on a very similar plane, whereby we can see the future and we think, wouldn't it be great if, but we don't quite know how to get there. And I think it's really a human trait, is, you know, don't have to have all the answers, but having the vision is half the battle, isn't it? So just for our little audience, because I love this idea, absolutely love this idea. Tell us what your TV show would be about.
Yeah, I mean, we've just gone straight into this, haven't we? Yeah, I've had this idea for a long time, and like you said, and you and I are very, very similar. Ideas are not my problem. They are, I get ideas all of the time. The vision part of things is easy for me. The pathway on how to get there is where I struggle, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit more depth. But yeah, I just had this idea around a future utopian world, whatever that might look like, and it's actually not so much that I'm particularly fascinated about. It's how would we get there? That's the most interesting part of it for me, and I suppose that's the journey is always the more interesting than the destination, unless you're on a long haul flight. I suppose that's less interesting.
Exceptions to every rule, isn't there?
Yeah,
but yeah, it is the journey. I've spoken in the past about Russell T Davies and his wonderful series. Have you seen Years and Years?
I have, yes.
Because that is kind of like, he's given us this picture of the future, hasn't he?
It was genius.
And the Anne Reid monologue where she blames everybody, it's your fault for the way the world's turned out, and you kind of have to go, flipping heck, she's right, it is my fault and your fault and everybody's fault that it's gone. You know, who the hell voted in Trump anyway? You know, who the hell let Liz Truss loose, or whatever it is, you know, whoever you're moaning and whinging about. Well, it's kind of, you know, it's our responsibility to take these things through. And I just think that he would be a perfect guy to kind of take Years and Years and then go, well, what happened next? And it's let's find utopia. And I wonder how he would visualize. So if anyone knows Russell T Davies, could you just get in touch? It'd be really handy.
Yeah.
So that he can work on this picture of what utopia is. And I think earlier on you were saying as well, is what's your utopia isn't necessarily my utopia.
Indeed. Yeah. And that's also fascinating, right? Is because you have a society whereby on the face of it, everything seems perfect. But, and, you know, maybe to a select few people, or 50%, or 80%, or whatever, but somewhere in that there's going to be somebody who is not, well, you would imagine there's somebody who's not 100% happy with things. It's a fascinating concept. That's humans, right? We're endlessly fascinating.
Well, this is kind of the concept of Collaboration Global, isn't it? For me, on the day-to-day basis, it's a place where you can hang out, you can meet people, you can learn stuff, you can support each other, you can grow your business, you can try new stuff out, and you can collaborate, as the name suggests. But actually, my big picture thinking, going visionary, is that we practice a culture of love and connection and abundance. And what would that look like if the whole world did that?
Yeah.
So we would have no need for laws of the land where the politicians are saying, no, this is what you're supposed to do, because we'll be like, we're okay, thanks, we're already doing it down here. We know what we're supposed to be doing, because the foundations are love. So if you're going to love people, why would you be mean to each other? And all of that. And so there would be no wars, there would be no famine, there would be no, because we'd share stuff and we'd help and support each other.
Yeah.
Now, that might not happen in my lifetime, although I am an optimist, so you never know. But it is this idea of, you said earlier, utopia is not possible. Well, hang on.
How do we make it possible?
Yeah, exactly. Everything's possible. It's just we don't know how yet. And this goes back to what you're saying. What's your first step? What would that be? So maybe for me, Collaboration Global is that first step. And I don't know if it's going to work, but do you know what? We'll have fun finding out.
Yeah.
And just trying it out for fun. So yeah, trying it on for size and see what fits. And obviously there are people in the world that go, hang on a minute, I've got all this money, I don't want to start giving it away to people. So they're not going to be happy. That's not their utopia.
Indeed. We need a situation whereby we can turn around to these people and go, look, you've had your chance.
Yeah.
It's not working. So let us have a go now. Thanks very much.
Yes, exactly. And I've always maintained that the biggest problem in the world at the moment is distribution. We've got all the solutions to the problems. It's just everything that we need is not distributed evenly. So there are some people that have way too much and some people have nothing at all. There's enough housing, there's enough food, there's enough water. It's just not being looked after properly. I know I'm simplistic, and I know I'm an optimist, and I know that people think I'm crazy, probably. But if somebody isn't an optimist and somebody can't visualize what it could be like, we're just going to end up picking the same scab and hurting ourselves again and again and again and again, and it going around ever decreasing circles.
Absolutely. But I'm with you on the optimist page, because I mean, there's a saying I've had in my head, and I like to think I came up with this, but I probably didn't. It probably came from somewhere else. But everything is possible with optimism, right? That's it.
Damn right.
So in any situation, whether it's a massive world problem like this or the one tiny problem that sits right in front of your nose right now, you more often than not are going to fix that with optimism. You're not going to fix it with pessimism. But and I also appreciate that pessimism is a safety mechanism. So that's a lot of people's first place to go to protect yourself from I guess yourself, or letting yourself go, and and then finding yourself in a place where you're at risk in your own mind.
Yes.
Well, as I say, endlessly fascinating.
So I think, was it optimism plus collaboration equals possibility? Does that work?
Love it. Yeah.
Quick, someone write that down.
Yeah. It's all right. This is recorded. It's there forever.
For posterity. Jill said it first, although probably Aristotle or somebody said it several thousand years ago.
Oh, that's all right. It's the same principle as if Gordon Ramsay makes a dish on your television and you like that dish and you go away and then you change one ingredient in that recipe, it's your dish. That's a fact.
I like that. I was taught once many years ago, if you hear something that's good and you put it in your business and you tell somebody else about it, the first time you tell them, you quote where it came from. The second time you tell them you heard this somewhere, and the third time it's yours.
Right.
It's like, that's a bit sneaky. But
yeah. I'll take that though.
I get it. So one of the things that you say is your raison d'etre, your belief at the moment that you are, at the moment, you've probably had it since you were 2, but carries you through, is this can-do belief around everything that you're achieving in your life. So where is this sort of gung-ho feeling come from?
Yeah, I'd love to say that I've had that since I was 2 years old. I think life would probably look a huge deal different if that was the case. This has come really late to me. I mean, I say late, I'm still a young man, but on the back of, well, going into my 40s basically, and on the back of a couple of health diagnoses, which we've spoken about before on the show, there's just a realization that hit me one day that I think probably this comes from a position of kindness, actually. So sometimes I've been too kind to others and I've forgotten about myself along the way.
Yes.
And
a lot of people resonate with that.
Yeah, and this is not to say that I would then turn around the next day and go, right, you lot, that's your kindness is up. You've had your turn. It's my turn now. It's just a realization there's enough kindness for everyone, right? So, but actually, and I don't know if I came up with this saying. I certainly used it once on a post that somebody had written once. But don't forget in the quest for kindness to look after yourself, because actually after that is when all the really good stuff happens. And it's been such a realization for me that actually, if you take a moment to really look after yourself and be kind to yourself, is that that's your launch pad for everything. In terms of, that's when your mindset changes, that's where you're being kind to yourself, so you're looking after yourself. And that's just through simple things like diet and exercise and giving yourself breathing space, and all of these things that we all talk about but never really do. But then on the back of that, it's this, right, okay, well, hang on a minute, what's stopping me doing this thing? And more often than not, the answer is myself. You might get people around you, and I've certainly had this, whereby, as I said earlier on, ideas are not a problem for me. But the minute I verbalize an idea out into the open, that's when you get the feedback. And a lot of the time, people can't comprehend the ideas that I have. So the first response is usually, "Oh, you can't do that."
Yeah. Oh, you don't do that,
mad.
do you?
Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah. And then another saying that I've come up with, or again, nicked from somewhere else, is that all genius ideas start by being lambasted by all around them, in the outset. So I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is that just because somebody else can't see your vision yet, doesn't mean that it's not an idea that should be pursued. And that's just got me thinking even bigger. And then that then comes down to, now I'm just, I suppose, a victim of my own thinking, because this takes up quite a lot of brain space to formulate these things into something meaningful. And a lot of them get parked, but there are still things where you go, right, well, this could be a game changer. This could change the world. These are the sorts of things where you start thinking. And again, you can then verbalize that to those around you. And I'm talking about people who love you, who are there again to protect you, possibly from yourself, possibly from putting yourself in too much of harm's way, taking yourself far too far out of your comfort zone, all of these sorts of things. And if I'd have known this stuff, we've spoken about this before. I think you verbalized this as having a little peek behind the curtain. Like when you get your head around all this stuff, it's like you've just woken up, that there's now, the word you use is possibility. What's possible. And actually the ratio that you made, which I forget, optimism plus collaboration equals possibility. Actually, another great realization that you can have is you actually probably can't get to where you want to get to on your own. So totally. Because you might have the vision. I have the vision, no problem at all. And I have visions in lots of parts of my life, but I'm not so great at the detail, and I'm not so great at the pathway in how to get there. So how am I going to get to that vision if I don't enlist the assistance of others? And I suppose it's all part of the can-do journey.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people want to enlist people so that they can lead them, but sometimes people don't want to be led. They like the idea and they just want to do it together, which to me is the true meaning behind collaboration, is that leaders emerge at the different times of the project. You don't have to have one person in charge to tell everyone else what to do, because you've got to use all your individual geniuses and insights and intuition to get the job done. So it's a different way of leading. It's like the servant leader who needs, I have this skill. When that's called for, I'll put my hand up and I'll do that bit. That's fine. And I'll get on with that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because hundreds of years ago, not that long ago, people like you with these ideas, and possibly me to a lesser degree, would be thought leaders and kind of encouraged to go think, because what you come out with is something that we can do. And then they will be surrounded by people that will put their ideas into action. And a modern equivalent is like Dyson with his wonderful production of, he takes scientists, go invent stuff. This is like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, go and create something special. So these people that are coming up with these, ideas for technology, for, cleaning equipment or whatever, have the space and the finance to experiment and innovate and develop. But we don't really have that space for thinking, for something like
No.
having a right attitude or accessing your genius. There's no kind of collective space where you can go to, I'm going to be a thought leader, I'm going to be a philosopher. It's like, we don't do that nowadays, do we? Or am I missing something?
But not that I'm aware of, and I think that probably stems from school, right, as well, because you just sparked something, a memory that I had under that discussion. I remember I wasn't particularly great academically. I mean, I probably could have been better if I'd applied myself, but the fact of the matter is that I didn't. So I got marked with the guy who wasn't particularly brainy, and but I also remember we did this two amazing things at my school, and I grew up on an island. It was a very small school, so in many ways we had a lot better opportunities because the classrooms were so much smaller. You got a lot more one-to-one time with teachers. Not that actually helped me in any way, but but there was two entrepreneurial things that they did, whereby they ran workshops for the day. The school basically shut down, and they got all of this was secondary school. They got all of the years in school, and they made teams with all of these people that the teachers maybe probably spent hours and hours and hours figuring out who should go where and all of that sort of thing. And then we were given scenarios as a team, much like, I suppose, a modern day apprentice, whereby I remember the scenario very clearly. We had to create a toy for for kids to collect tokens for and go in when they were in service stations and things like that. So like you'd have I don't know, McDonald's, for want of a better phrase, and you would get a token, and you saved up your tokens, you get a toy back. So we had to come up with an idea for this. And I remember they had to take it through to pitch. You had to go and get all of your, how much were the materials going to cost, and they had a teacher who was
brilliant,
who was head of plastics, or or whatever, and you had to go and negotiate with them about what price can you give me and all of that. And I was in my absolute element. And actually, even then, we only did one day of that. We did another day, which was offsite, which was only for senior level people. So sort of 4th, 5th, and 6th years. And I was one of the ones that was sent from my school to go to this away day, and we had to create a whole new tourism plan for Scotland. That was so all of these things. These were the things that ignited me, but I don't think that happens in every school. No. And so, and there's something else I've spoken about this with friends locally around the fact that wouldn't it be great to start an entrepreneurs club after school thing, where you run these sorts of things, and you start giving the kids these sorts of skills, which even if they don't take into an entrepreneurial environment, are going to help them in their life in some way going forward.
Another brilliant idea. I love that.
Yeah,
and a lot of people are trying to do something towards that. I know there is Angela Mayers over in Denver has created a genius hour for 500 schools across the US, whereby the children are not taught how to be a genius, but they are given an hour for them to explore what their genius might be. And it's that kind of something that's a little bit off the different scale, where there's no right or wrong. And it's the same as having this entrepreneurial space. It's like, what's that then? Oh, that might be me, because I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, I don't really like that, that's not fun, but oh, that looks interesting. And it's just giving that extra opportunity for something that's going to help people go, square peg, square hole, I found my place, this is where I'm going to feel happiest, this is what this is my joy. Funnily enough, literally just before we came on this call, I have spent an hour in the company of Dr. Lizzie Berntal doing a masterclass for Collaboration Global, and that was about discovering your genius. Now, I'm a grown-up. I've done this kind of thing before, and I'm like, yeah, I know what my genius is. That's fine. Let's just see what Lizzie's about. This is going to be exciting. I'm enjoying this. Well, again, just being given a direction and a 10-minute quiet window of now think about it, I have come up with pages and pages of stuff that my brain and my intuition just went, vomited onto the page. And I now see that for one specific area of my life, why my genius is being thwarted. And it's like, had I not stopped for that time, I wouldn't have seen it coming. So understanding at a young age, if you can find that and have that space, get to try this, get to try that, see if you're a genius. That the stuff that we're not really teaching. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some schools out there that are doing that, because there are some teachers that are being given go on, give it a go, try it out, because the headmaster or headmistress are confident in their staff and they give them a free rein.
Yeah.
And many years ago, when I was a primary school teacher, we had a headmistress who was brilliant. It's like me and a friend would say, like, look, you lot sound like you're going to have a bad afternoon because they're all having a whinge. Should we take the kids for the afternoon, a couple of hours, and you go and do your planning or whatever, and we'll look after them in the hall. So we would have the whole school. So what's that? 500 kids for the best part of 2 hours, and took them outside, and and it was fun, and they loved it, and we loved it, and we were just enjoying ourselves. But it wasn't on the curriculum.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but the headmistress was like, yeah, go, enjoy, have fun. And if you want a list of the things that we taught them, well, hang on, what did we do? Well, he changed the tire on his car to show anybody interested how to change tire on a car. I did some singing and dancing stuff with them, so we can tick that stuff off. Schools today need your vision, people that kind of go, how about this? And then see what Ofsted say. If they can identify how it's going to impact in a positive way these children going forward, then you get outstanding. That's what happens on the report.
Right.
I'm kind of getting sidetracked here.
No. But I think we obviously live in the world that we live in the moment that we live in it, and all of that sort of thing. And with every generation, you hope that there are new ideas and new ways of thinking and all of these sorts of things. And those are the things for me that we should be encouraging as much as possible, not stifling. And I don't know enough about the curriculum. I don't have kids myself, although that's something that we're trying. So I'm not privy to it firsthand, but I have had conversations with mates locally who do have kids, and there's definitely some things lacking. I mean, even things like household budgeting, God, I mean, especially in the time that we're in now, if you're entering out into the big wide world after you've graduated from school, college, whatever, and you don't have the basic capability to budget within your household, then you're starting from a weak position.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just calculating what your mortgage payments should be, working out how to work out your electricity bill, credit cards. I mean, they are like
applying for car finance, and all of these sorts of things that actually are the things that you end up doing in your day-to-day life that are very, very important. So we need a University of Entrepreneurialism, or the School of Entrepreneurialism, and we need a life school as well. So there we are. You need to copyright this episode, Jill.
Okay,
because,
I will. I'm going to put big lights all around it so people can understand that this is what we need to do, the world. Also on communication and how people don't communicate effectively, and understanding good mental health, all these kind of things you get touched upon, but don't really, they should be the foundations of all the curriculum. But we don't have the budget, we don't have the pressures put on us. It's very easy to go from the outside looking in, and most teachers would go, you have no idea what we have to put up with.
And that's fair enough. But then if that's the case, then what are we waiting for? Because if that's going to be the case, and that's only going to get worse, or it doesn't get any better, then we need some people to think about, okay, well, if we're not going to get the support from central government to make something like that happen, but we feel that it's necessary and it will have XYZ knock-on effect in terms of the people that we're putting out into society, as it were, then it just needs enough people to go, okay, so what do we do about that then? And that's it. Just needs, again, you can't do that on your own. I think you can have an idea on your own, but to have a collaborative approach to something like that, I think, is absolutely essential. And it's also a situation whereby you don't want to alienate the schools. It's about keeping everybody at the table. For
this is what bugs me when people have a whinge about schools, like it's their fault, and it's just the hand they've been dealt. So you always have to look up higher. When I was teaching, and a new education minister was in, everyone was like, oh, here we go. let's just get the stuff out we had 7 years ago, because it's going to be the same. They just recycle it all the time. And
Yeah.
it's true, you look back and you can see all these initiatives were 7 years old, and the schools have to change everything. And then they go back to is it phonics this time? Is it, however they're supposed to be teaching children? It's like, oh, new broom, sweeping clean. And it's people's lives you're playing with. You've just given me an idea now. I need to build a school, don't I? Or we need to build a school, just so we can experiment with it and go, this is what it could look like here, Do you know what? Ricardo Semler, you've heard me rave on about him. He's done a TED talk. Everybody go to TED.com, look up Ricardo Semler. He has created schools like that. Schools where the children choose what they want to learn. He said, for example, how to build a bike. He said, they don't do maths, they don't do English, they don't do history, but try and spend so many lessons building a bike, and they don't use pi. They're going to learn about pi. They don't find out, where the bike started from and how they became where they are, and also science and, how you can make it better. He said all the subjects come in. Why have they got to be all separated and siloed?
Yeah.
So he had the idea, and he was trying to give the idea away, and people wouldn't take it. So then he went, actually, this school, if you buy this idea from me, it's only X amount of $1,000, and people started buying it. So give it away. He couldn't give it away. So now there are Ricardo Semler style schools across Brazil.
Brilliant.
And it's like, yeah, somebody's got to start it somewhere. But it's this collaboration. So now in my mind, I've got this school, and everybody that's a member of Collaboration Global would be going into the school to teach what their best bits are. So they only have to do maybe one lesson a month. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
It would.
And we just pay them for that lesson. And that's another thing. Teachers don't get paid enough.
Yeah, but the great thing about this, even Ricardo Semler,
SEMLAR, yeah.
It has, even in that moment whereby he has a concept and an idea that he wants to give away, that to me is golden mentality to have, because there's none of this, well, it's mine, therefore, if I don't do it, it's not going to happen. How does that benefit anyone ultimately? And even if somebody by some stretch of the imagination is listening to this and hearing all of these ideas that we're spouting out and goes, do you know what? I think I could absolutely make that work. Then I would be, oh, please do it.
Yes.
Like, go, and if I can help in any way, shape or form, please let me be part of it. I'd much prefer a situation like that, whereby you can come up with the idea, but somebody who can really see how that might work would take that idea on and actually complete it.
Totally. One of the things we talk about at Collaboration Global are the profiles in a collaboration. And the first one you need before you can do anything else is the visionary. And this isn't a profile that's your personality or your communication style. It's just the responsibility within the collaboration. So that visionary can start the ball rolling and then maybe disappear for a little while, but come back and check that the vision is still on track, that nobody's lost, that the rudder is not flailing, it's going in the right direction. And then you have to have the catalyst that can be that second person that go, yeah, come on, let's get some people on that are really excited to build this vision and go forward. And then you have to have the driver that's possibly my position a lot of the time is like, okay, when are we going to do this, and how's it going to happen, who do we need, have you done your thing that you said you were going to do? And then as time goes on, there are 12 different profiles to make sure that the collaboration comes to an end. And you can do it in such a way that 3 people can have all 12 profiles. If you've got 5 or 6 or 9 or 10 or 12 people in a team, they can try a profile out. Well, that's not my natural space, but actually I'd like to try that out. I've not done much sales. It means they're responsible for it. It doesn't mean to say they have to do it. But if they're responsible for it, they need to understand it in order to teach other people how to do it. So it's kind of, to build a school, you would just, get all of these responsibilities together. No, it's not even to build. You can find an old building somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just to bring it to fruition. I think that's
It's like that guy a few years ago, there was a TV program where a guy made a bank. And the idea behind the bank was that all profit that it would make would go back into the local community.
Yes.
And you think to yourself, why can't it be like that?
I know, exactly. Why is he talking about, why are we listening at this as though it's revolutionary? It's like, it should be like that. I remember my favorite quote, probably of all time, is Ricardo Semler again. when he said a friend came to him and said, Ricardo, I've had a good life. I've done well in my life. I'm a millionaire, multimillionaire. He said, it's time for me to give something back to the community. And Ricardo looks him square in the eyes and says, if you have to give back, you took too much in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, we should all be giving as we go, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
And just bringing all wonderful ideas together and seeing how we can help. Again, we're going down the optimist route, aren't we? Because some
Indeed,
people
yeah.
are
But you know,
holding.
this is probably, and we have digressed probably away from the original question. That's always going to happen. But
Yeah.
there's probably maybe some people would listen to this and, you know, be up in arms and go, they don't know what they're talking about and all of that. And you know what? That's something that I've struggled with all the way up until I hit my 40s. But
Right.
it's now the people who question your own stance on something that I kind of seek counsel from.
Right.
And that's not to say I'm going to listen to anybody who's just shouting in my face and ranting for the sake of it. I will welcome debate with anybody when it's level and where, you know, and no voices are raised. And ultimately, that's the thing for me that I've definitely changed my mind about. So I have my ideas and my values and all the things that I stand by. But if somebody was to if I went into a room of 30 people and I imparted what I thought I'd learned, and 30 people came back and said, you're wrong, Phil, and here's why, I am so open to that. Because that to me is, I think it's a really powerful position to be in any room that you go into. Is if you go in there thinking that you know it all and that you've got all the answers, then you're doomed. But if you go in there actually with the mentality that I know nothing at this point in time, so I'm going to let knowledge come to me. And again, if you think about the bigger world and all of the things that are going on, imagine if we could do that in social media and things like that without having everybody just jump down everybody's throat all the time, and actually just take a moment and go, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before. And I will look into that. You know, it's simple things, simple mindset shifts can make a massive difference.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I would love it if you went into that room of 30 people and 29 were going, that's ridiculous. And there was one of them going, maybe.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to go against the grain, don't we? We have to be told that's never going to happen. And then part of you goes, watch me. Because you kind of know that, why can't it? Give me a reason why it can't happen. I don't understand why it can't happen. And it's usually down to money, or it's usually down to this is the way it's always been because it suits certain people at the top of the tree. So why would they've got nothing. It's like, why would turkeys vote for Christmas? You know, understanding that kind of mentality. So, oh yeah, totally. I like the idea of people saying to me, you can't do it. Not because I'm pig-headed, but it's like, tell me something I don't know. I'm open to discover. I've got blind spots that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So I need you to explain it to me. But it's got to be, and every time somebody says, because this, oh, yeah, but why? Because of this is, but why? And quite often you can go in that conversation and they go, do you know what? I don't really know. That's a really good, I don't know if I said this to you before, but I remember as a kid saying to my dad, when you've had a dent in your car, that bumper, I said, it's made of like steel or something, and it has a dent, and you have to take it to the car shop, and it gets mended. Why don't they just make them of rubber? So you just go, oops, sorry, and carry on. And he's like, because then the garage would be out of business. And I'm like, well, they'd have to go and find something else to do. It's this kind of industry has been created for nothing. And then, of course, the insurance company would have a problem because if you just went, oops, sorry, and carried on, they wouldn't have a claim. And then people would be out of work. Yeah, but they've got they probably don't enjoy what they're doing. You know, being in insurance isn't the dream job when you're sort of 7. What do you want to do when you grow up, Phil? I want to be in insurance.
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
I'm still waiting for that one to hit me, Jill, to be honest.
It doesn't quite happen. So
no.
Evolution is another thing that you talked about, and it is interesting, isn't it? The older we get, the more but give it another 20 years and you'll evolve even more. I think I've done most of my learning in the last 10 years, so I'm coming up for the big 6-0 next year. And to look back on the last 10 years, it's like, I knew nothing before then.
Yeah, but none of us know anything, Jill.
Really?
Really, you know, we all claim that we're experts in everything, but actually none of us know anything about anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, and even if you contemplate somebody a scholar who has devoted their life to one subject all the way through their life, by the end of their life, they still have not covered everything that there is to know about that subject. So how can we all profess to be experts in all matters of day-to-day life, you know? And so for me, when I kind of had that realization, it's like a weight off, you know. You just go, I don't know anything, so, you know, I'm just going to do the best I can with what I've got, and I'm going to be kind to people along the way, and let's see what happens along that. But again, that's an evolutionary position from my own perspective. This is what living your life becomes, isn't it? It's little moments of self-reflection. And actually, I was having a talk with somebody recently about self-reflection, and I now place so much emphasis on that, like to understand where I've come from that's made me who I am today, and sometimes to unpick that a little bit and go, that's sent you down the wrong place, Phil. You know, you need to change your mindset towards that. And we come back to the can-do mentality. It's always been, I can do that, but that's kind of always been the line that I would hear in my head. So just removing the but from that sentence is part of a self-reflection of looking back and going, what's the thing that's stopped you making progress? Oh, is it because you don't actually believe you can do it? Is that basically what it comes down to? And so I think without self-reflection, and I think that the earlier you learn that self-reflection needs to play a large part in your life, the quicker you can move on with everything. You can forgive people quickly. You can forgive yourself quickly. You can, you know, it's just that it's a thing that allows you to take a moment and go, oh, do you know what? That time I went into that meeting and I berated that person for no apparent reason because I was having a bad day. You know, and you think, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that person. So I'm going to make sure that if I'm having a bad day, I'm either not doing meetings that day because I'm not in the right state of mind for it, or, you know, we're going to do something to make sure we snap ourselves out of that moment that we're in.
Wow. That's reminded me of one of the best lessons in life I got was from an 8-year-old when we had a kids takeover of a Collaboration Global meeting. It's when we did the face-to-face stuff, and we had, I think, 2 8-year-olds, the 10-year-old, 2 13-year-olds, and a 15-year-old, and they took the meeting.
That's awesome.
We learned so much. Oh my god!
Oh my god! Yeah, that would be so cool.
These kids were phenomenal. Not anything special, but they were very, very special, if you know what I mean. And one time there was somebody that was saying they were talking about, they'd offered the subject of success, and we were having a discussion. So all the grown-ups are sat down and the kids around the front, and they were sort of pointing to the PowerPoint that they'd done. It was just so clever. Even this 8-year-old was like, okay, we'll take one question from you, sir, and then we'll have another question from you, and then we'll hear from you. Is that okay? He owned the room. I mean, there were literally 30 adults that were strangers to him, and this 8-year-old didn't care, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody said, what I find really difficult is that I can't do that. You know, what you're saying is great, but I can't do that. And he looked at her and he went, yet.
Oh. Oh, and then drop the microphone.
Exactly. And I'm at the back of the room going, yes, brilliant, brilliant. And it was just so profound. And it's like every time I go like, oh, I can't do that, I hear Elliot going, yet, Jill.
That's brilliant.
And if that's, well, a shout out to Elliot Caudle if you're listening. I think he's almost a grown up now. This was a few years ago. But it is amazing what one person can say that sticks with you, and can have that impact. So what you're just saying about self-reflection.
Yeah, because I think a massive part of that, and Elliot's a prime example. I've no idea what Elliot's gone on to do, and since then, we'd be very interested to find out. But you know, fear is a learned behavior, right? I mean, you know, so at that point, the adults are looking at that from an adult perspective, going, there's no way in the world at the age of 8 I could have stood up in front of these adults and done this presentation. Elliot's not experienced that fear. And so he's just, he's not learned how to be fearful of that situation, and hopefully he never does. And that's I think a really powerful moment of self-reflection. Sometimes you can't get there on your own as well. I've taken the assistance of life coaches in the past to learn more about myself, because something's made me stuck, and a lot of that is around the fear of failure, fear of other people's opinions, fear of getting hurt, all of these things that stop you doing. But think about the people who've gone on to achieve what you might look at and go, wow. Like the one that I always bring into my head is Eddie Hall, who was the world's strongest man at one point, from the UK, and he became the first person to deadlift 500 kilograms, half a ton. And it's much like the concept of Roger Bannister and the 4 minute mile. But there was a massive part. I watched Eddie Hall do this, and I was like, wow, what have I just witnessed? Or Felix Baumgartner, when he jumped off that platform in space and fell to Earth. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
I remember watching these moments and going, why are these people different to me? Like, why is there no part of my being that says, I can do that, or I want to do that? And well, I don't want to do either of those two things. But nevertheless, what is it within me that I should be saying, I'm going to do that? And not only am I going to do that, that's going to be the best that the world has ever seen in that. And it's taken me 42 years. I'm 44 now. I'm really only 2 years into this journey. And I probably have to thank COVID for this.
Oh,
did I just say that out loud?
God bless COVID. Yeah, there are some good things that come out of it, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely, that was the moment that COVID allowed me a moment to stop and think and breathe. And I was, I definitely caught up in the hamster wheel in that moment. And I might have jumped back on the hamster wheel, but I've jumped back on with very different mindset and a very different set of goals and a very different set of, well, not a very different set of values, but they're more accentuated and aligned into my business than perhaps they were before.
Do you find, I think you're right, I think COVID has made a lot of people do this self-reflection. Do you find now you've kind of moved the tanker of your life to go in a slightly different direction, that maybe possibly will be that way, sort of 90 degrees in different direction, as opposed to going plodding along in the way that you were? And quite often, most of us, I think, before COVID were definitely reactionary rather than responsive and taking responsible decisions. I mean, Gina Gardner, one of our members, always talks about radical responsibility. It makes you realize, when you really think about it, how we are allowing things to occur around us. You walk past a piece of litter in the street and you go, oh, there's litter in the street, and you carry on. It's like, well, hang on, there's litter in the street, I'll pick it up. It's that taking personal responsibility for stuff. So how much do you think in the last 2 years, since you kind of gone, hang on a minute, and you've shifted your dial slightly, how have you seen the universe kind of respond to your new being? Has it resonated, or have you seen a difference in your life as a result of it?
I think so, for sure. I don't think so. I know for sure. Just simply because, and maybe this was always here, but I'm more alert and open to conversations with people and where that might go. And it used to be, I don't have time for that conversation with that person, even though, who knows, 6 degrees down the line, that person has the thing that makes that thing tick and all of that sort of thing. And I just, opportunity keeps presenting itself right in front of my eyes. I don't even have to look that hard for it. And it's the thing that I need at that moment in time. For example, the coach that I've now taken on for my recruitment business has opened my eyes to 90% of the things that I haven't been doing, or I wasn't doing especially well, or I have been doing, but that's not what I should be doing, because that doesn't get the best out of me as a human, doesn't take advantage of what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And so just, I don't think you necessarily see these things when you are, as you said, your words, plodding along and just kind of reacting to the world around you as it's happening and going, right, that's happened, so I need to do that. Now it's a case of, it's vision led. So now that's the vision. I can't get there on my own. What do I need to get? And then all of a sudden, oh, that person's going to help me figure this part of it out.
Yeah.
And now I can see that I need to bring in somebody into the business who does the things that is the opposite of my flow state. You know, and so it just becomes all about keeping myself in flow, basically, as much as possible, because then the work's not hard. The work doesn't take effort. The work is easy to get out of bed for. I'm filling in the blanks with people who, that, Jan, the prime example, and a lot of recruiters will tell you this, that all recruiters hate admin. Yeah. So let's hire somebody who likes admin.
Yes.
Who'd have thought that was a genius idea? And, you know, so none of this is groundbreaking stuff, actually, when it comes to building a business. But again, before 40s and before COVID, when I didn't have the moment to think about these sorts of things, it always was around, well, I'll just find the answers myself somewhere along the line. And I may well do, but it's going to take me a lot longer to get there if I don't enlist the help of others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's having this self-awareness for what your being is, but also how your being could grow and develop, and it's like taking responsibility for who you are as a person, but also has a knock-on effect, and and as you say, the vision that you've got sat there, what do I want to do with that, and where do I want to take it?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, on that note, I'm just going to ask one of my favorite questions. Phil Street in front of us is like, woohoo, I'm self-aware, I've got a coach, I'm going places, I've got my vision sorted out, you know, I'm not saying everything's hunky-dory because life gets in the way. But when you were, say, 7 or 8 back in the day, and you were hanging out with your mates and you were playing, and what have you got a really standout happy childhood memory that just kind of fills you with joy?
Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of gave me a heads up that this might be a question that we would, because I'm absolutely lucky to say that I had a really happy childhood at home. I had 2 awesome parents, a brother who, you know, we fought quite a lot, but actually, if I think about it, that probably did me quite good. But I don't know if there's so many happy memories. I don't know if there's something I'm missing completely, that as soon as we've finished here, it will just flash up into my head and I'll go, that was the one. But I remember age 7 or 8, we went on a day trip. It was summer holidays in Scotland. It was actually sunny. And it was my dad's turn to be off work to look after us. And so my dad said, come on, we'll go up to Aberdeen, which is, I don't know, probably about 3 hours away from where we were living at the time. And we'll go and see the city. We'll go and see where Aberdeen Football Club play. We'll go to the pleasure beach. And I was like, wow, yes. And it was, I can't remember a time in my life, and maybe this has had a massive bearing now on who I've become as a person, is that's something that my parents did a lot with us. They were just really trying to get us out and experiencing things as much as we could. And it was didn't have to be something massive and grand wise, like a big day out like that. But I remember just being completely wide-eyed that day. It was the first time that I can remember being in a different city other than Perth. It was the first time that I could remember being near the beach. It was the first time that I went to a theme park, and all of this happened in a day. It was the first time I'd seen a Premier League football club stadium.
Wow.
You know, and all of these things. And I have such a fond memory of that day. I don't think my brother and I fought once as well. So that would have been quite rare.
Historic.
I should caveat that my brother and I have an awesome relationship now, just in
Excellent. I'm
case
glad
anybody
you said
wondered.
that. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
worried.
And yeah, that to me is a day that sticks long in the memory, clearly because it was the first thing that came to my mind.
Hmm. And I kind of relate that beautifully to the person that you are now, because you're an ideas man. You can see the future and the vision. And I think having had that experience of like, oh, there's that, and oh my goodness, there's that, look at that. It's like this whole, what else is out there in the world?
Yeah,
There's so much that you didn't know existed, and now you're kind of like, well, we could try that, and let's have a look at that. What about if we did that? So it's like this childhood boyish effervescence that's going on in you that you kind of either captured from that day or that was always there, but you all have this awe about you of stuff like, yeah, let's do this. I remember you telling me when you first started out with your podcast, Hospitality Meets, if anybody wants to go and check it out. It's going great guns, but I remember it's like, well, yeah, I just found out about this podcast thing, so I'm going to give it a go. And you kind of, you had zero expectation of what it could be, but actually it's turned into something that you find, you're quite fond of it, aren't you? It's
for sure.
something that kind of, the logo and everything that goes with it, it's kind of, it's an identity. And what I see that picture and I think of you, and I think of that, the podcast and the amazing people that you happen to talk to, and I love listening to it when I go out on my walks. So I think maybe how we deal with our life as a child does have a massive reflection on how we deal with our life as a grown-up.
Yeah, it's very difficult to argue with that. And again, I feel very, very lucky that I had parents that were that way inclined. And actually, I've spoken to a lot of people around this as well, is that neither my mum or my dad especially had great childhoods themselves. They both had certain issues in either of their family that led them to effectively fly the nest maybe sooner than they would have naturally have liked to. And I always remember them telling us when we were old enough to kind of understand that they just wanted to make sure that they gave us experiences and gave us the opportunity to learn about what was out there. And I would absolutely take that forward with me if I'm lucky enough to become a parent myself.
Yes, yeah, I think you've got such a lot of what's the expression? Everyone, new parents have got a lot to give. You've got a lot of stuff, but yeah, all your parents have got a lot to give. But I think we're not just talking about you giving comfort and nurturing and those kind of things. It's your enthusiasm for life and your concepts that you're kind of constantly playing with, the can-do attitude, the evolution of life, the self-awareness that you've got. I think any child that is blessed to come into your life, whether they're one of yours or borrowed from somebody else, I think they're very lucky to be able to access that enthusiasm and that. Well, I really do think this isn't just me spouting, because there are some people in the world who are great parents because they do what they need to do, and that child's going to have to go out and fight and find their own stuff and find their own way, and you want them to do that. But I just have a feeling that your kids will be like, hold my hand, Dad, let's do it together. And you'll be like, yeah, come on, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, probably by then I'll be like, really? Are you sure? No, I thank you, Jill. That's really, really kind. And I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope I'm in a situation whereby I get to try. And I think I just have this, there's lots and lots of little golden moments that pop into your head at certain times of your life and all of that sort of thing. And I think that the one thing that, and this kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier on around giving kids just a chance to flourish and not have to worry about, not have to, I suppose, go out into the world and learn new things that they could have learned from quite a young age.
Yeah.
Is that, life is basically a test. So we might as well be ready for that. So anyone who says that, I could never do that, I can't comprehend being able to achieve something like that. Yeah. What choice do you have? You've got to go and try, because, the old cliche of you're a long time dead and all of that sort of stuff is true. So while you're here, go and test yourself, because there's so many amazing things happen when you get past the test, and then you get to look back on your life in self-reflection in 10 years' time and go, God, can you believe we did that?
Yeah.
And I actually have this from, we mentioned the podcast. There was a mate of mine from uni called me up and said, I hadn't really spoken to him for probably 5 or 6 years.
Mm.
And I'd released, I don't know, maybe at that time, 6 or 7 episodes of the podcast. And he said, I can't believe that that's the Phil Street that I knew at university.
Oh, wow.
And I went, what makes you say that? He said, well, you were the shy kid at the back of the class. You would never put yourself forward to do presentations and all of these sorts of things. And I remember thinking, wow, that's growth right there. But there has to be a moment where you say to yourself, I'm not listening to that voice that tells me that you can't do this anymore. I've got to go and try. And if I fail or it doesn't work, then who cares?
I don't think there is any failing. I think it's a very misused word. I think if something doesn't work out, it's just learning. And you make a powerful choice whether you continue because you've learned that it's not your thing, or you go in a different direction. But I think failing has got so much shame attached to it that it doesn't serve us to think in that sense. What I find really interesting is sort of my vision for where I want to go with Collaboration Global. Is obviously on stage with lots of people in the audience. And I've been speaking recently to some really big global speakers who have been on stage with the best. You name somebody on stage and they've been there and done it. So I was really grateful that they agreed to come and speak for Collaboration Global. Couldn't believe it. But also, do you know what, Phil?
Go on.
They're normal human beings.
You're joking.
They're nothing special. It's like, they don't walk on water or anything.
No,
they're just normal people and with their own little problems and their own world. And we got on like a house on fire. And I'm like, I'm no different to them. Why can't I be on a stage the same as they are?
Yeah.
For different reasons. But, it's just like, it gave me hope that it's like, we do all human beings together, trying to make a difference, trying to help each other. And we can do that in every possible way that we can. All you got to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
And you'll get there.
The only difference is that they maybe their voice was quieter, the voice that tries to say don't do it. Maybe they just got to that first step a little bit quicker than you did for that particular thing, but it doesn't make them any better at it. And that's the thing. But you're never going to know that until you put yourself in that position.
Yeah. Watch this space.
I certainly will. Have you got Simon Sinek yet?
Oh no, he well, I won't go into that one, but yeah, he was I couldn't afford him, basically.
Right, I see.
Yeah, £100,000 for
Zoinks.
10 minutes.
My goodness. I thought I was doing quite well at 30 grand for 45 minutes with Darren Brown.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's down a bit.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Oh,
mind you, that was about 10 years ago. So with inflation,
a little bit then. Yeah, my goodness.
Yeah.
So if people want to talk to you, obviously there's various things that you're doing at the moment. Please enlighten us to what your day job is and whether anyone should be contacting you, and also about the podcast as well.
Yeah. So my day job is Momentum Hospitality Recruitment. It kind of does exactly what it says on the tin. We operate in hospitality recruitment. It's been a challenging couple of years. I don't think the future is without its challenge, but what's been great about COVID and I'm sorry to keep bringing up COVID, is for hospitality is that I've never felt like the industry is more united than it is now. There's still a long way to go, but everybody's on the same page as what we need and all of that. So it's great. The podcast has been an absolute revelation. It's a total flow state place for me. Just talking to people about their lives and their lessons and all of that sort of thing. And actually the saying you said there, I had somebody on the show, Chris Wayne Wills, who said there is no failing, there's only winning and learning. So it's absolutely, and that's evolving like everything. season 2 is coming to a close shortly. Season 3 will start in October. Season 3, I believe that you might be coming on the show.
It's so exciting.
Because this is the thing for me, is that and this is also how I think industry generally wins, not just hospitality, but we don't need to look inwards for the answers all the time. We should be looking outwards for the answers. And that's why, for me, it's important that the podcast engages with people who don't just operate within hospitality, who've got their own thoughts and wisdoms that hospitality can then bring in.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about our chat.
Me too.
And yeah, and that continues to go from strength to strength. It's now, I don't know how this has happened, but it's now in the top 3% of all podcasts.
Wow. Round of applause for that, man. That's fantastic. Now everybody's going, how have I not seen it? I'm going to go and listen.
Yeah, no, well, it's very niche. It is it's
fine.
Absolutely. We're not quite at Joe Rogan's download numbers yet, but we'll keep driving forward.
That's awesome. Absolutely love it. Well, all it leaves me to say is, how should people get in touch with you? Is there a LinkedIn or?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So yeah, just hunt me out. Phil Street, FIH, it will say on the end, which is a fellowship of the Institute of Hospitality. Or they can just email me, phil@momentumrecruitment.com. I will always try and respond.
Lovely. Okay, Phil, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been an absolute joy, as I knew it would be. Wishing you every success, continued success with the podcast, and also future endeavors. Thank you. Kindness, evolution, and can-do belief. Perfect. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
And if you want to find out more about Collaboration Global, as a guest, anybody can come along on the last Tuesday of the month. Go to collaborationglobal.org. And you can book onto one of those sessions there. Who knows, you might even see Phil sitting in the corner online as well. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Take care.